So, what was it like working on, such a revered classic prequel, right? I mean, you're thrown into this world that John Carpenter created. Talk about that a little bit.
I think it was really exciting, but also I think we all had a little bit of pressure on our shoulders, as we should, because we all love the Carpenter version. Every single one of us involved in the film were huge fans coming into it, and we all kind of had the same feeling of like, let's not mess this up, guys. Let's make a good movie. Let's make these fans proud. Let's make them happy. And everyone, felt that way, like rising up to the producers. They had such a smart take on the material, and they were so adamant about keeping the integrity of the Carpenter version and staying in that world and keeping the subtlety and the slow burn and the character development. And that's what really drew me to it, and that's what, I'm so happy, came out of it in the end.
We're lucky to have everybody on board to make that movie. It's not somebody fighting to make the generic version versus the storytelling version. And you had storytellers across the board, whether it be character-based with the actors playing the characters, or, Matthias and his ability to find a linear storyline and do that rising tension to the state of paranoia and isolation and self-preservation that it becomes. I mean, that's the good news, is that movies are so impossible to make in the first place, but when people are in kind of opposing philosophies about what movie they want to make, it makes it almost impossible. So everybody was striving for the same thing, and I think that's what made the movie work.
What was it about the alien specifically that was so unique, that created such a sense of paranoia among the crew?
Well, I think, it has to be the fact that it can mimic anyone perfectly. So you literally don't know if the person next to you, who's been your friend for years, is someone you can trust or not. And the way that breaks down, a community of people, and the way that causes fear and paranoia to rise and brings out these elements in people where they resort to things that they never would have otherwise resorted to, is what's really kind of fascinating, and what is those themes are what make this film so interesting.
And it's something that's universal as an audience member, because we all have issues with relationships and trust. And, the fears in our lives, whether it be loved ones or relationships we're in, or people that we work with, is what happens when that trust falls apart and we're betrayed in these moments. That's universal. I think the trust issue is universal. And I think that you, as an audience member, have to have something that you can identify with the characters, and understanding somewhere from a logical standpoint where they are and what that feels like, and I think that makes it possible.
It's not just a scary movie. I mean, this is such an intense, kind of talking about that, intense psychological thriller. You're saying you don't know who's who, you don't know who's the alien, and just such intensity on set. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's funny, because I think it was a really fun set overall. We had, especially with this group of Norwegian actors who were so excited to be there every day, and who had this just unadulterated joy at all times, and it was kind of, you couldn't help but just sort of catch it yourself. So offset, it was really like everybody was having a great time. So it was interesting to kind of flip back and forth, and have to kind of get into that mindset, once you step foot on set, and try and just get really serious and get really intense and go to that place, because the people were all so lovable that, it certainly wasn't something that, we took home from work at all.
And sometimes when the subject matter that you're shooting is so intense, you have to find that balance when the cameras stop rolling, otherwise you go crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think shooting on location is a very kind of isolating experience in itself, because you're away from everything that you know. And we had some really funny people, Joel and Mary and Christopher. There's a lot of great sense of humor on the set that made it kind of livable.
Never seen an alien transformation like that ever. Can you talk a little bit about if that was fun or kind of disgusting to film those scenes?
Right. Well, when I first saw the mock-up designs, when I met with Matthias before we started shooting, I was so excited, because they looked so kind of grotesquely beautiful, and I was so excited to see how it was going to turn out, with the end product, and seeing what they did on set, what they were able to do with the practical effects, what all the different types of things that were used, the puppetry and the animatronics, and still creatures that would be lying, that would be burning, it was all incredible, and it just enhanced with CGI in the film. Everything that you see in the film was there on set with us, and we were able to react to it, and we were able to feel it really there and tangible, as opposed to just looking at an X and imagining something, so it was great for us as actors to have that.
Those special effects guys they're artists. They created works of art, and they're terrifying.
Yes.
And that makes all the difference in the world. Acting with that versus a tennis ball makes those scenes work.
So, how does it feel to be part of this classic prequel? I mean, was it like an honor to be thrown into this world that John Carpenter created?
Yes, absolutely. Come into my lair. I mean, look at this. This is great, isn't it? I was a huge fan of John Carpenter's original classic in the 80s. I grew up watching it, I consider myself a bit of a horror snob, in that I like those horrors that have a bit more of suspense, thriller aspect to them. And the classic certainly had that. And when I read the prequel, it had all of those elements. And the fact that David Foster was also the original producer and was very much shepherding and guiding us with it was a huge element to being on board. And the fact that he chose a European director, I thought that was interesting because he hadn't directed before. I'd seen some of his work, but we didn't cast huge names in this film. The story was really about the thing, and so automatically I knew that they were trying to create something a little different, So it was quite exciting to be part of that whole journey. I was like, yeah, I want to get on this.
About the thing, what was so intense about this alien that created such paranoia among the crew?
Well, I think because I think this film, as with most horror, it really speaks to the primal fear that we have as human beings about the unknown. I mean, here's a creature that's come out of nowhere and it assumes the human form. So automatically, all these questions, it questions every relationship and it becomes survival of the fittest. It's like, it really engages the audience to partake in the story because it's like, okay, if this is your partner and they were the thing, what would you do? Would you try to help them, save them? Would you torch them? Would you, it's an interesting dynamic. It's like, really? What would you do? So I like that element, and it creates a dialogue because even after the movie's finished, you walk away from the movie thinking, wait a minute, was when he crashed in the plane, was he, those are the movies that have longevity because they create dialogue between the audience and also even in the actors. I enjoy that process.
Perfect. I've never seen transformations like this, the way the alien transformed.
Jeez.
Can you talk a little bit? Was that fun and kind of disgusting filming those scenes? Can you talk about that a little bit?
It was disgustingly funny. No, honestly, it was what I call exquisitely vulgar. It was vulgarity at its peak. I mean, you get your buck's worth if that's your thing, because they went to painstaking details to create these prosthetic creatures. And as an actor, it really informs your performance. I mean, normally you do these things with special effects and a little green ball, but here we had the luxury of these detailed creatures right down to the skin texture. It was almost human-like, and they were automated, and the faces would contort, the bodies would twist, and they would almost scream, and then they start creeping toward you. I mean, when you're acting, you don't really have to pretend it's coming, blood squirting. So that was a lot of fun. And then, there was some great stunts. They're torching these guys, and they were like not just on fire; they were balls of fire. These human beings, these stuntmen were doing great jobs. On fire for 3 or 4 minutes. So it was just a lot of fun to be involved. If you're gonna do a horror movie, I mean, that's what you want. You want to be in there with some really ghastly creatures, and I think these are the type of creatures that it's going to take about 10 years, another decade to catch up to. But I think it's set the bar. I mean, I haven't seen a movie that touches that.